If someone told me I'd end up in handcuffs outside my own house on my own driveway, would have laughed. But that was before Karen called the police on me. It was a quiet Saturday morning in Willow Creek, a small, sunlit neighborhood where every house looked exactly the same. White fences, manicured lawns, "Love Lives Here" signs, typical suburbia. I'd just returned from a 2-month overseas deployment. After serving in places where silence could mean danger, I wanted nothing more than peace. But peace isn't something you get when Karen lives next door. I parked my black Ford truck right in front of... If someone told me I'd end up in handcuffs, outside my own house, on my own driveway, I would have laughed. But that was before Karen called the police on me. It was a calm Saturday morning in Willow Creek, a quiet suburban neighborhood where every house looked picture-perfect. Freshly cut lawns, white fences, and neighbors who smiled only when they needed something. I had just come back from an overseas deployment. 2 long months of heat, dust, and danger. After years in the military, I'd learned to appreciate silence. But that morning, silence wasn't what I got. I parked my black Ford F-150 right in front of my garage, half blocking my own driveway just to unload some heavy duffel bags from the back. I'd barely opened the tailgate when I heard the screech of a door slamming. "Excuse me?" That voice, sharp, loud, entitled. I turned slowly, and there she was, Karen. The neighborhood's self-proclaimed watchdog. Blonde bob haircut, oversized sunglasses, and that permanent look of disapproval like the world owed her an apology. "Can I help you?" I asked politely. She crossed her arms. "You can start by moving that truck. You're blocking the street." I blinked. "The street?" I looked around. My truck wasn't even touching the curb. "Ma'am, this is my driveway," Karen huffed. "I don't care whose driveway it is. You can't just park wherever you feel like." "People have to get through here," I sighed, keeping calm. Years of military discipline had trained me to stay composed under pressure. But honestly, I was tired, jet-lagged, and just wanted to get inside my house. "I'll be done in a few minutes," I said. "Just unloading some gear." She rolled her eyes. That's what they all say. Before I could even respond, she pulled out her phone, recording. "I'm documenting this," she said dramatically. "In case you try something." I almost laughed. "Try something?" "You look suspicious," she said. "People like you." I cut her off. "People like me?" She froze, realizing how that sounded. But it was too late. The damage was done. "I've lived here for 15 years, she continued, her voice trembling with self-importance. "And I've never seen you before." "That's because I've been serving overseas," I said quietly. "U.S. Army." But she didn't care. She was already dialing. "I'm calling the police," she said. "You don't belong here." I stared at her. I wanted to laugh, but part of me was genuinely angry. I'd just risked my life serving this country, and here I was, being treated like a criminal on my own property. 10 minutes later, 2 police cars pulled up, lights flashing. Neighbors peeked out from their curtains. A few even came out to watch. Karen stood proudly near the curb, pointing at me like she'd just caught a fugitive. "There he is, officer! That's the guy!" One of the cops, a young rookie, approached me with a hand on his holster. "Sir, can we see some ID?" I took a deep breath and handed him my driver's license. "Sure thing, officer. This is my house," Karen scoffed. "That's what he says." "Check the name." The officer looked at my license, then at me, then at the house behind me. "Sir, can you prove you live here?" I nodded slowly, my patience thinning. "Yes, the deed's inside." "My name's on it." The other officer, older and calmer, noticed my military duffel bags. "You in the service?" "Yes, sir," I replied. "Lieutenant Colonel, U.S. Army, just got back from duty overseas." The older cop's eyes softened immediately. "Welcome home, Colonel." Karen's mouth dropped open. "What, Colonel?" "No, he's lying. Look at him, he doesn't look like..." The younger officer shot her a look. "Ma'am, we'll handle this." I could see her expression changing, fear, embarrassment, and disbelief all at once. "Wait," she stammered. "You mean he actually lives here?" "Yes, ma'am," the officer said calmly. "And blocking your own driveway isn't exactly a crime." Karen's cheeks turned red. I didn't know." I smiled slightly, finally allowing myself to speak. "You could have just asked instead of calling the cops, Karen." Her lips tightened. I was just trying to keep the neighborhood safe. From what? I said, stepping closer. A soldier coming home? For once, she didn't have an answer. She looked down, clutching her phone like a lifeline. The officer handed me back my ID. Sorry for the trouble, Colonel. Welcome back. I nodded. No problem, officer. Just doing your job. They turned to leave, but Karen stood there frozen, realizing how badly she'd messed up. I loaded the last bag into the garage, glanced back and said calmly, next time you want to protect the neighborhood, start by knowing your neighbors. Then I walked inside, closing the door behind me. But that wasn't the end of it. Because the next day, something strange happened. My security cameras caught Karen sneaking around my yard at night. Again. They say you never really know your neighbors. But when I checked my security footage the next morning, I realized just how right that saying was. It was 2:37 a.m. The street was silent, the only sound coming from the rustling of trees in the wind. I sat on my couch with a cup of black coffee, still a little restless from everything that had happened the day before. My phone buzzed, a motion alert from the security app connected to my driveway camera. At first, I thought it was just a raccoon or the wind moving the trash can. But when I opened the video feed, my heart froze. There she was. Karen, wearing a gray hoodie, sneaking across my front yard, flashlight in hand. She moved carefully, like someone who knew exactly what she was looking for. She peeked around my truck, then aimed her flashlight toward the side of my garage. What the hell are you doing, Karen? I whispered to myself. I zoomed in on the footage. She had something in her hand, a can of spray paint. My stomach tightened. No way. Sure enough, she leaned forward and started writing something on my garage door, in big, sloppy red letters. When I checked the footage frame by frame, I could read it. Go back to where you came from. For a moment, I just sat there, shocked, speechless. After everything. After the police proved. I lived here. She still couldn't let it go. I clenched my fists. Not out of rage, but disbelief. This wasn't just nosiness anymore. This was hate. I called the police department immediately and explained what I saw. They told me to stay inside and not confront her directly until they arrived. But deep down, I knew she'd be gone before they got here. And I was right. By the time the patrol car showed up, Karen had vanished back into her house. At sunrise, I stepped outside to look at the damage. The words on my garage glared back at me like a scar. My heart sank, not because of the insult, but because of the ignorance behind it. I'd fought for this country, bled for it. Lost brothers overseas for it, and here, in my own neighborhood, I was being told I didn't belong. The officers returned to take a statement. One of them, Officer Daniels, was the same older cop from the day before. She really did this? He asked, shaking his head as he looked at the footage. Yeah, I said. That's her. Clear as day. He sighed. We'll take care of it, Colonel. Don't worry. You've got solid evidence. But I wasn't just worried about the words on my garage. I was worried about what Karen might try next. Later that afternoon, as I was repainting the door, I heard footsteps. I turned, and there she was again, standing on the edge of my driveway, pretending like nothing had happened. Morning, she said, her voice fake and sweet. I didn't respond. She watched me paint for a second, then sighed dramatically. I heard someone vandalized your garage. That's terrible. I dropped the brush. You think? She blinked, pretending to be confused. Oh, you think I had something to do with it? I stepped closer. Karen, I have cameras. Security footage. You were caught red-handed. Her face drained of color. That's ridiculous. You can't just accuse people. I'm not accusing, I said calmly. I'm stating facts. For a moment, she didn't know what to say. Then she tried to laugh it off. Maybe it was a prank. Those kids from Maple Street. Stop lying, I said. You did it. Her voice cracked. You don't understand, okay? I was just trying to protect the neighborhood. By painting hate on my garage, I asked. By calling the cops on me for parking in my own driveway? She opened her mouth, but no words came out. Karen, I said quietly, I served 12 years overseas defending this country. I came home to start over, to live in peace. And you've made that impossible. For a second, I saw something in her eyes. Guilt, maybe even shame. But then it vanished. Well, she said sharply, if you're so perfect, maybe you should move somewhere people actually want you. That was the last straw. I pointed toward the street. Leave my property, Karen, right now. She huffed, spun around, and stormed off, but not before muttering, "This isn't over." That night I couldn't sleep. Something about her last words bothered me. I reviewed the camera footage again, and that's when I noticed something strange. In the background of one of the clips, just beyond the fence line, I saw a man's shadow. Not Karen, someone else. He was standing near her backyard talking to her before she snuck into mine. I zoomed in. The image was grainy, but I could make out a black SUV parked behind her fence. Unmarked. Tinted windows. Whoever that guy was, he wasn't just a random visitor. It suddenly hit me. Karen wasn't acting alone. I didn't know who the man was, but I was going to find out. Because if someone else was pulling the strings, using Karen to target me, it wasn't just about a driveway anymore. Something bigger was going on. Something I hadn't seen coming. I saved the footage, packed a small camera in my pocket, and waited. Because the next night, I was going to catch them both in the act. And trust me, what I discovered next didn't just change how I saw my neighbor. It changed everything I thought I knew about this neighborhood. They say every neighborhood has secrets, but I never thought mine would lead to something this dark, or this personal. The night after Karen's vandalism, I sat in my living room, lights off, watching the live feed from my security cameras. The time was 1:58 a.m. The world outside was silent, still. Then movement. The same shadow appeared again near Karen's fence. This time I was ready. I grabbed my phone, started recording, and quietly stepped outside through the side door, staying low, careful not to make a sound. My boots crunched softly against the gravel as I crept toward the back fence. And there, under the faint glow of a street lamp, I finally saw him, tall, broad-shouldered, wearing a dark jacket with a security logo on the sleeve. Karen stood beside him, whispering urgently, "Are you sure this is the right house?" The man asked. Karen nodded quickly. "Yes, it's him. The military guy." "He's dangerous, I told you." My heart pounded. "Dangerous? Me?" I stepped out from the shadows. "You two looking for something?" Karen gasped, spinning around. The man turned too, his hand instinctively, moving toward his waistband like he was armed. "Whoa, easy there," I said, keeping my hands visible. "You mind explaining why you're sneaking around my property at 2 in the morning?" Karen's voice trembled. "You shouldn't be here." "I live here," I said coldly. "You, on the other hand..." The man spoke, his voice calm but cold. "Sir, I'm with private security. We had a report about suspicious activity." "Private security?" I raised an eyebrow. "Funny, because the only suspicious activity I've seen is you sneaking around my yard." He glanced at Karen, clearly uncomfortable. "We were just..." I interrupted. "Just what? Setting me up again?" Karen took a shaky step back. "You don't understand. He told me you weren't who you say you are, that you were lying about being in the military. He said you were dangerous." My jaw tightened. "And you believed him?" She looked down. "He said he worked with the city. That he was investigating you?" I took another step closer. "And you never thought to verify that?" The man's face hardened. "That's enough. You should go back inside." I stared at him, my instincts kicking in. There was something off about this guy. His stance, his tone, too controlled, too professional. Then I saw it. A tattoo on his wrist, half hidden by his sleeve. It wasn't military. It was Contractor Inc., Black Hawk Global, a private defense agency, one I'd dealt with overseas. My pulse quickened. "What's Black Hawk doing here?" I asked quietly. He froze. "You don't know what you're talking about." "Oh, I know exactly what I'm talking about," I said, my voice steady now. "You're not security. You're here for something else." The man exhaled, his cover blown. Karen looked from me to him, confused. "What's going on? Who are you?" He glanced at her coldly. "You should go inside, ma'am." "No," she snapped. "You dragged me into this. Tell me what's happening." He hesitated, then finally said, 2 years ago, this man led a raid overseas. One of my contractors didn't make it back. He's been blaming him ever since." Karen blinked, stunned. "You mean revenge?" The man didn't answer, but I could see it in his eyes. It was the truth. He wasn't here because of a neighborhood complaint. He was here to intimidate me. "You've been following me," I said. "Since I came home." He didn't deny it. Karen's face went pale. Oh my God. You used me. He turned on her sharply. You wanted him gone. I just gave you a reason. Karen stumbled backward, realizing what she'd done. I didn't know. You thought you were protecting your neighborhood, I said. But you were just helping someone settle an old score. The man reached inside his jacket, and for a split second, I thought he was pulling a weapon. My training took over instantly. Don't, I said, stepping forward. He froze. I kept my voice low but firm. You take one more step and you'll regret it. There are cameras everywhere. You make a move and the police will have everything. He glared at me for a long moment, then slowly backed off. This isn't over, he growled. Oh, it's over, I said. Because this time I'm the one calling the cops. I took out my phone and dialed 911, giving the dispatcher every detail. Within minutes, squad cars arrived, lights flashing across the quiet street. The man tried to leave, but the officers stopped him at the corner. Karen stood frozen, tears in her eyes as they questioned her. When they asked for the footage, I handed over the recordings from my security cameras. Everything, Karen's vandalism, the man's presence, the late-night meeting, it was all there. The next morning, the neighborhood was buzzing. People whispered, blinds lifted. For once, they weren't looking at me with suspicion. They were looking at her. Karen came to my door later that evening, eyes red from crying. I'm sorry, she said softly. I didn't know he was using me. I thought I was helping. I looked at her for a long moment. You almost destroyed someone's life because you didn't bother to ask questions, Karen. Tears rolled down her cheeks. I know, I'm sorry, truly. For a moment, I wanted to stay angry, but then I remembered why I came back home in the first place. To find peace. Let's just move on, I said quietly. But next time, don't assume the worst about people you don't understand. She nodded, turned, and walked away. Weeks passed. The man was arrested for harassment and impersonating law enforcement. The truth finally came out. He'd been fired from a defense contract years ago after losing his unit. During a mission I'd led, he blamed me for everything. And when he found out where I lived, he used Karen's paranoia to get close. It wasn't about a driveway. It was about revenge. But that's the thing about truth. It always finds a way out. I stood on my porch one evening watching the sunset over the quiet street. The air felt different now, lighter. Karen waved awkwardly from across the yard. I nodded back. No anger, just closure. Sometimes peace doesn't come from silence. It comes from standing your ground when the world tries to paint you as something you're not. So next time someone judges you before knowing your story, don't explain yourself. Just let the truth speak for you.